Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, I want to begin with the Victorian poetry, right?
Yes, sir.
I think that you are all okay. Hopefully, I think that most of the students are joining to this program. I know that you are living at different corners of our country because of the corona pandemic. So, are you all okay?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay, thanks God. Now let me begin with Victorian period. The Victorian period started from 1837 with the ascending of Queen Victoria to the British throne, and it ended with her death in 1901. So the Victorian period extended from 1837 to 1901.
Right.
This is the
1837
it is
1832.
let me finish. It is the historical period, okay? But there is some controversy about this period. According to the literary trend, it is said that the Victorian literary age began from 1832, but historically, as it is called the Victorian age, so we consider the ruling period of Queen Victoria from 1837 to 1901. All right? Whatever.
Yes, sir.
At first, let me focus on the literary background and trend of the Victorian age. To know any writer, any poet, you must know first the historical, political, social, economical, all these factors that in one way or another have great impact on the mind, on the character, on the thoughts and ideas, views and visions of the poets or the authors. So let me discuss first what was the condition of the Victorian age and the Victorian society that influenced Victorian literature, Victorian poetry, Victorian novels, and so on. Now, what are the points? Let me mention the points of the Victorian society. First of all, Victorian age was an age of learning. It was an age of science and technological advancement. The first point, okay? The people had the spirit to know the unknown, to see the unseen, to conquer the unconquered. So, the spirit of the Victorian people was hungry for learning, knowledge, education, etc. And the scientific inventions and discoveries played a vital role in forming Victorian literature. As for example, I can mention Darwin's theory of evolution. And you have heard the name of his masterpiece, that is The Origin of the Species. This brought about a revolutionary change in the mind and thoughts of the Victorian people. Okay? The Victorian people were devoted to God and religion. But this book came to the people as a great shock because, according to Darwin, suppose human beings have come to process of evolution. natural evolution. But people so far believe that it is God who has created all things and beings. So there became a conflict between scientific outlook and our religious belief. Okay? And in literature, we find this impact of this conflict. Okay? Another important point is industrial revolution. Because of this industrial revolution, there was rapid growth of material prosperity, increase of trade and commerce, as well as prosperity. On the one hand, this industrialization, urbanization brought about wealth, property in England. On the other hand, we can find the dissatisfaction among the lower and working class of people, slum dwelling people. So, on the one hand, we find prosperity. On the other hand, we find poverty. So, there is also an economical rest and unrest, both. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Another important factor of this period is the expansion, rapid expansion of British colonies all over the world during the period of Queen Victoria. England had supreme power, ruling all over the world, and because of this colonization, British power, British trade and commerce greatly flourished. And we can find this impact in various works of the writers of the Victorian age. Another important aspect of this age is political polarization, political democratic trend. Because of the Reformation Bill that was passed in 1832 in England. This Reformation Bill brought a change in political arena, bringing about tolerance, democracy, and peace in England. Okay? Another important aspect of Victorian is material development. Side by side, we find decadence of morality, loss of faith during this period. Can you think that on the one hand, Victorian society was advancing towards materiality. On the other hand, there was moral collapse, moral decadence. People were advancing towards scientific outlook, rationality, intellectuality, materiality. So at the same time, we find the opposite scenario. Another important point is that Victorian age in literature is called the age of doubts, conflicts, confusion. Why is this conflict? Because of two opposite streams that were running across the Victorian age. On the one hand, the conflict between the old and the new, between the tradition and modernity, between religious faith and scientific outlook between the upper class and the lower working class. So all these conflicts ultimately brought doubts and confusion among the Victorian people. And this conflict was greatly reflected. Hello?
Yes, sir.
Hello, my dear students.
Yes,
Can you
Yes,
listen
sir.
to me?
Yes, sir.
Can you listen to me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So the Victorian age is the age of conflicts. And when you go through the poems of Tennyson and Arnold, you can find this reflection of doubts and confusion, as well as conflicts between the two opposite concepts, right?
Yes,
And
sir.
last of all, the Victorian age is also called the age of compromise. Compromise between these two opposite concepts, opposite standards. Okay? And what was the compromise? Suppose if we speak of Tennyson, Tennyson is called the poet of compromise because on the one hand, he tries to hold up his tradition, his culture, old values, faith in God and religion, all these he held up with dignity and respect. On the other hand, he welcomed scientific advancement. So he tries to make a compromise between the two. Not only he compromises between the then science and religion, but also in politics. Suppose on the one hand, there was the trend of democracy. On the other hand, there was also unrest in power. So the conflict between power and democracy was compromised. And because of some laws, suppose Corn Law, the Reformation Bill of 1832, all these brought a political compromise in England. Another compromise in economical activities in England. And what is that? There was a conflict between the aristocracy, between the upper class and the lower working class. So this class conflict came into a soft liberal condition because of all these laws passed in Victorian period. Again, we can also find a compromise in literary arena. How? You can think of the Romantic age, the preceding Romantic age. And in literature, there was subjectivity, there was romanticism, emotions, imaginations. All these aspects you can find in Romantic age. But the Victorian age was advancing towards morality, that is art for life's sake. So Victorian age was passing through these two streams of literary concepts, Romanticism and Victorianism. So we can find also a compromise in the field of literature. And Tennyson is called the poet of Victorian compromise. I can quote some lines from Tennyson's More the Earth, where he says, old order changeth, yielding place to the new. That is, the old should not be rejected. The old should be modified with the necessity of the new, the modernity. Modernity should be guided by the tradition, and tradition should be modified by modernity. This Tennyson means by the lines old order changeth, yielding place to the new. Do you understand? Hello, my dear students.
Yes, sir.
Sir.
And question is set. Consider Tennyson as a poet of compromise, Victorian compromise. And then you have to mention all these fields where we find the spirit of compromise. And when we go through Victorian literature, either novel or poems, you can find the reflection, the mirror of Victorian age, Victorian society in general. Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
So all
Yes,
these are
sir.
the factors of Victorian age that we can find in literature. Okay. Now let us begin with Alfred Lord Tennyson, who is called the most representative poet of the Victorian age. In fact, he is the greatest Victorian poet and one of the most outstanding poets of all times. Okay? And this is Alfred Lord Tennyson. Alfred Lord Tennyson, Robert Browning, Matthew Arnold, Christiana Rossetti, all these are the Mrs. Browning, all these are the poets of the Victorian age. Now, Tennyson. And let me mention some important information about Tennyson. Tennyson was born in 1809 and died in 1892. So almost he enjoyed 83 years of life. He was educated at Trinity College, Cambridge. And you will be surprised to know that at the very youth, he was awarded by the Chancellor's Gold Medal for one of his writings. And the name of his writing is Timbuktu. Tim, Timbuktu. Timbuktu. One of his earliest writings, for which he was awarded the Chancellor's Gold Medal Prize. And he surprised the teachers, the students of Trinity College, Cambridge University. So he was a talented artist and poet from his very beginning of his life. And he was also appointed the poet laureate after the death of William Wordsworth. After the death of William Wordsworth, Tennyson was appointed the poet laureate. Okay? And he was in that position until his death in 1892. Another important factor is that he was made Lord and he had a seat in the House of Lords of England. So Tennyson had a great influence in literature, in political field of England. He was an influential, powerful writer and person of England. Now, what kind of person he was? I want to quote some lines from Queen Victoria. Tennyson had twice meeting with Queen Victoria. At the first meeting, Queen Victoria remarked about Tennyson. And let me quote from Queen Victoria. Tennyson was very peculiar looking, tall, dark, with a fine head, long black flowing hair, and a beard. Oddly dressed, but there is no affectation about him. So this is high appreciation of Queen Victoria about Tennyson. And what are the major works of Tennyson? Now, let me mention his major works. First of all, In Memoriam. In Memoriam is called the masterpiece of Tennyson. And it was written as an elegy at the death of his college friend and a fellow poet, Arthur Hallam. And he was very much intimate with Arthur Hallam. As Shelley wrote Adonis at the death of Keats, as Matthew Arnold wrote his Thyrsis at the death of his friend Arthur Clarke, Tennyson wrote In Memoriam, in memory of his close friend Arthur Hallam, and that is In Memoriam. And he has some popular worldwide great poems, such as Ulysses, that you had in your syllabus in most probably first year. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Did you have this poem, Ulysses?
Yes, sir. First year.
First year. And you have also some poems of Tennyson, such as Tithonus, Lotus Eaters, Inoni. All these poems you have in your syllabus in third year. And another important poem is Locksley Hall. That is also in your present syllabus, Locksley Hall. And some other important poems are The Lady of Shalott, Mariana, The Princess, Maud, The Church of the Light Brigade, Idylls of the King, Maudie Arthur, and so on. All these are the outstanding literary achievements of. Yes, please. Any question? Any question to ask me? So all these are the literary works of Tennyson. My dear students. And I want to begin. Yes, please.
No, sorry, please continue.
Okay. And the poem that I want to discuss today is Tithonus. Okay. Do you have the text with you?
Yes, sir.
No, sir.
Okay. Today I want to mention the main theme of the poem. Okay.
স্যার আপনি কি স্ক্রিনটা শেয়ার করতে পারেন বইয়ের স্ক্রিনটা?
না, আমি তো উল্টা দিকে কিভাবে শেয়ার করব? Just let us discuss the theme of Tithonus.
Okay.
You have pen and khata with you, okay?
Yes, sir.
So write down some important information about Tithonus. Tithonus was first written in 1833, and the title was Tithon, Tithon. The first title was Tithon when it was first written in 1833 at the request of Thackeray. Thackeray is an important literary figure of Victorian age. He requested Tennyson to send a poem for his magazine, and he wrote this poem Tithonus. But this poem was revised and published in 1859. So it's a long period when this poem was formally published. And then it was named Tithonus. At first, you should know the background of this poem. Okay? And what is the myth about Tithonus? Most of the poems of Tennyson have been taken from Greek myth. And taking Greek myth for the story of his poem, he has blended Victorian elements with the Greek mythological elements. Okay? So this is a technique of Tennyson to represent his own age, own society, own thoughts, views, and visions. He has taken theme from Greek myth. And what's about Tithonus? So write down Tithonus was a Trojan prince, son of Leomedon and Strymo, S-T-R-Y-M-O, Strymo, and Trojan king Laomedon, L-A-O-M-E-D-N, Laomedon and Strymo. Who was Strymo? Strymo was a water nymph or goddess. So, man and supernatural. And father is mortal and mother is immortal. And Tithonus was a brother of King Priam of Troy. He was a handsome young man and he was a great hero of Troy. Okay, this is Tithonus. Now, our poem Tithonus is in fact a dramatic monologue. And the speaker is Tithonus, and the listener or the audience is Aurora. So there are two characters in the poem Tithonus. First, Tithonus, the speaker, the narrator, and Aurora. Who is Aurora? A-U-R-O-R-A. Aurora. Do you listen to me?
Yes, sir.
সবাই শুনতে পাচ্ছ তো আমার কথা clearly?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So Aurora, whose another name, Latin name is, Greek name is Eos. Write down please, A-O-S, Eos. Eos is the Greek name. Eos is a Greek goddess of the dawn. So in Latin, she is called Aurora. In Greek, she is called Eos, and she is the goddess of the dawn, Bhorer Devi, Usha Devi. And Aurora fell in love with Tithonus. She was greatly fascinated by Tithonus' youth and handsome, attractive stature. And she fell in love at first sight. After falling in love, she took Tithonus from the earth to heaven in the western sky, where is the palace of goddess Aurora. And because of her love, she did it. And after it, she took Tithonus to Zeus, the king of gods and goddesses. And Aurora requested Zeus to give some blessing to Tithonus. Zeus asked what you wanted. In answer, Aurora told Zeus that she just wants simply a boon for her lover. And what is that? She wanted immortality, to immortalize her love for Tithonus. But she forgot to ask for eternal youth. She wanted eternal life, but not eternal youth. Because of this, what was the predicament? They were passing the time in romantic love, enjoying happiness, passion, joys of life. And they had two sons. তাদের দুটো ছেলেও হয়েছিল. One was Menon and the other was Timotheus, two sons. But with the passage of time, Tithonus began to grow old. And this is the law of nature. Time never forgives anyone. Everything and being with the passage of time must decay and at last meet death and destruction. This is the verdict of God. And this is the law. An ordinance for man that today or tomorrow he is to die. Okay? But it is Tithonus who wanted to cross the limit verdicted by God. Can you remember Dr. Faustus?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Have you read
sir.
Dr. Faustus?
Yes, sir.
Dr. Faustus wanted necromancy, black art, which was forbidden for men. Okay?
Yes, sir.
In the same way, Tithonus, being a man, he wanted to immortal, which is forbidden by God. No man can challenge God's law. But Tithonus wanted it, and that was his curse in the guise of blessing. Though he was gifted with immortality, this immortality ultimately became a curse, intolerable and unrelievable curse, sufferings for him. Because of immortality, lacking immortal youth, Tithonus grew older and older. His beautiful, handsome figure became crooked. His limbs became weak. His hands and legs became thin. His hair grew white. His face wrinkled and pale. At last, he lost his power of movement. He began to pass his time lying on bed in heaven. Think the irony of life. And now life with immortality has become a burden, intolerable burden for Tithonus. He can't bear this imbalanced life. Why? On the one hand, as Aurora is a goddess, she enjoys immortal youth, immortal life. Her beauty never fades. Decay. On the contrary, Tithonus is growing older and older, losing his past spirit. Once a handsome young man, with love and passion, aspiration and spirit, has now become a weak, timid, almost paralyzed person. So he wants to get a relief from this unbearable sufferings and agonies of life. He requests Aurora to take back the gift of immortality and to give back him mortality. Now he wants to die in the morning from heaven, from the eastern sky. He looks downward to earth. He looks at the world, our world, where human beings are born, live for some time, then lie in peace and happiness in grave. So seeing this happy birth, life and death of human beings, he suffers and he wants to die like a common human being. When he requests Aurora to give back common life of a mortal man, Aurora sheds tears only, because gods and goddesses cannot recall their gifts, cannot take back their blessings. And this is the divine law, that they can give, if a gift is given, it never be taken back. So Aurora feels for Tithonus. She feels sympathy for Tithonus, but she's helpless. So she only sheds tears. But you should also keep in mind that Aurora does not change like human women and girls. Our students, girl students don't mind when husband becomes old, lover becomes aged, women's love fades for another young partner.
এটা দুই ক্ষেত্রেই তো হয় স্যার দুই ক্ষেত্রেই তো প্রযোজ্য
in both cases, right? In both cases. But Aurora, like a mortal woman, does not change. Her love is as usual. Okay? So she only sheds tears, being helpless to do anything for Tithonus. But in Greek myth, Tithonus was transformed into a grasshopper so that he could get relief from sufferings and agonies of a man. Okay? As he transformed into a grasshopper for his relief from human sufferings. Okay? It is in myth, but not in this poem. The poem ends with Tithonus' death. Okay? Message of this poem. What is the aim of Tennyson? Is Tennyson's purpose is to give us information about Greek myth or something else? Tennyson's purpose is to teach us a great message, a lesson. And that is also a reflection of Victorian spirit. And what is that? You know that the Victorian people were aspiring for knowledge, wisdom, advancement. They wanted to cross the limit, being inspired, being enthusiastic because of scientific adventure, invention. Okay? So, on the one hand, through Tennyson, represents the aspiration, the desire for the unlimited of the Victorian people. On the other hand, he has given a warning to the people that they should not cross the limitation sanctioned by God. We can't cross the limit bounded by God, selected by Allah. So I have told you that Tennyson was the poet of compromise. So on the one hand, he shows the desire for the unlimited, to travel the untraveled, to see the unseen, to know the unknown. This spirit he respects on the one hand. On the other hand, he shows the limitation. We should stop some fire. And that is the law of nature. That is the rule of God. He also reminds us of these religious bindings and restriction. And it is not applicable only for the Victorian people. Okay? Let me quote the most important lines from the poem where you can get the message. You have no books. Most of you have no books. But let me just quote the most important lines from the poem. In the next class, I shall discuss the poem in detail, and you should, in the meantime, you should have the poem, if not your text, from your internet. You can download the poem. Okay? Do you listen to me?
Yes, sir.
You have no book. If you have no book, you have at least your smart set. Okay? And your mobile set is the best book. Best books, a library. Tennyson's Tithonus, the lines that you get from this poem, I have already mentioned that Tithonus is aspiring for death, longing for death. And what is his realization? The realization that he gets is reflected in the lines that I am now reciting. Why should a man desire in any way to vary from kindly race of men, or pass beyond the goal of ordinance, where all should pause, as is most meet for all? He questions, Tennyson questions himself, and he puts this interrogation to all human beings, that why should a man desire? You understand? Why should a man desire? কেন একজন মানুষ চায় in any way to vary মানে ভিন্ন হওয়া, differ হওয়া, সে আলাদা হতে চায় from the kindly race of men, মানুষের সম যে শ্রেণী, সেই শ্রেণী থেকে সে কেন আলাদা হতে চায়? দ্যাট ইজ, সে ইমর্টালিটি চেয়েছে, কমন ম্যান থেকে সে আলাদা হতে চেয়েছে। or pass, কেন সে অতিক্রম করে beyond the goal of ordinance, ঈশ্বরের নির্ধারিত যে আদেশ, নির্ধারিত যে সীমানা, সেইটা কেন সে পাস করে যেতে চায়, অতিক্রম করতে চায়। where all should pause, যেখানে অন্য সব মানুষ পজ করছে, থেমে যাচ্ছে, মানে মানুষ মৃত্যুকে গ্রহণ করছে। as is most made for all, সবার জন্য যেটা যোগ্য মৃত্যু, সেই মৃত্যুটা যেখানে সবাই আলিঙ্গন করছে, আমি কেন একা সেই গডের নিয়ম ভেঙে সীমাকে অতিক্রম করতে গেলাম, যে কারণে আজ আমার এই প্রেডিকামেন্ট, এই ক্যাটাস্ট্রফি। So these are the most important lines of this poem, and this is the message for the Victorian people as well as for people, human beings of all places, of all times. So you should have also some message from this poem. Please don't cross limitation. Okay. So in next class, I want to discuss some important lines from the poem, and you have also compare and contrast this poem with some other poems, particularly Ulysses, to understand this poem clearly. Okay. Today I want to close my lecture now. You have any question, please ask me. সোহেব দু একজনকে তুমি ইয়ে দাও, ফ্লোর দাও।
স্যার এন্ডিংটা আবার আরেকটু বলেন টিথনাসের।
The poem begins with longing, sufferings of Tithonus, and it again ends with his desire for death. He wants to die. Observing human beings on earth, how they are being born, how they are leading their life, and after some certain period of life, they are embracing death and now lying in grave in peace. He observes all this from heaven through his sufferings. And in the same way, he wants to go back to earth and he wants to accept death like common human beings. Thus, he requests aurora, though it is not possible. Here is the end of the poem. And any other question? Anyone, please?
স্যার
Yes.
স্যার টিথনাস এখন কোথায় আছে?
Tithonus is still living among us, with us. We can find many Tithonuses among us who wants to desire for the unlimited and also suffers. Okay? Any more question?
স্যার ওকে যেহেতু ব্লেসিংটা ব্যাক করতে পারতাছিল না গডেস, তো নতুন ব্লেসিং দিত, তাকে আবার ইয়াং করে ফেলতো।
But it's not possible. It is the law of heaven, divine law.
গডরা যে ব্লেসিং দেয় সেটা তো আর কোনো উইথড্র করে না।
হ্যাঁ, উইথড্র করা যায় না, পারে না, তারা চাইলেও পারে না। If it is given for all time, and it cannot be taken back. So gods are also
impossible to withdraw.
Right. They are also under some rules.
Then sir grasshopper কিভাবে হলো?
এটা একটু চেঞ্জ করা যাবে, ট্রান্সফর্ম করা যাবে, বাট টোটালি
পুনরায় ট্রান্সফার করা যাবে না আগের জায়গায়।
হ্যাঁ, টোটালি চেঞ্জ করতে পারবে না। ওই যে কথা ছিল কি সে মরবে না, এটাই
মরবে না, তাহলে গ্রাসহপারের মাধ্যমে সাথে
হ্যাঁ, গ্রাসহপার হতে পারবে, লাগে পাখি হতে পারবে। হ্যাঁ। Any other question? এই যারা কোশ্চেন করবে না তারা বোঝে নাই, তাই মনে করবো।
আর তারা বেশি বুঝছে স্যার, এজন্য কোশ্চেন করে নাই।
স্যার এটা পাবলিশ হয়েছিল জানি কত সালে? 1800?
এটা পাবলিশ হয়েছিল 1859।
এটা
রিভাইজড হয়েছিল আবার শোনো,
ফার্স্ট রিটেন 1833।
হ্যাঁ 1833, এবং এটা রিভাইজড হয়েছিল কিন্তু, হ্যাঁ কিছুটা রিভিশন হয়েছিল, এডিট হয়েছিল, তারপর এটা আলটিমেটলি প্রকাশিত হয়েছিল। এনি মোর কোয়েশ্চন? এই শোনো, নেক্সট ক্লাসে আমি কিন্তু ধরবো, এরপরে প্রশ্ন করব।
স্যার আমরা মিউট করে রাখবো।
এখন তো স্যার আপনি অনেক দূরে, কিভাবে ধরবেন স্যার?
হ্যাঁ ধরবো তো, এখান থেকে আমি
থেকে আসি নাই, আমি নোট করতে পারিনি স্যার।
আচ্ছা নেক্সট দিন আবার বলবো তো, নেক্সট ক্লাসে, তখন আমরা আবার এটাকে ফিডব্যাক করব। ওকে
স্যার নেক্সট ক্লাস কখন হবে স্যার?
আমরা ক্লাস এই 9টায় করব।
স্যার কিছু মিস হয়েছে স্যার, এই যে নেটে ডিস্টার্ব করে, তো এইজন্য
যাক, আমাদের আরেকটা ক্লাস তো আমরা অ্যাট লিস্ট নিচ্ছি, তখন আবার ফিডব্যাক আমরা করব। ওকে, তবে তোমরা, আমি বলি সবাই তোমরা খাতা কলম সাথে নেবে অবশ্যই, ঠিক আছে? আর যেখানে তোমরা বুঝবে না সেটা আমাকে থামিয়ে দাও। হ্যাঁ, কিছু তোমাকে পয়েন্ট নিতে হবে, আর যেহেতু তোমাদের সবার সাথে বই নেই, এটাই তোমাকে হেল্প করবে কাজ করতে। আর আমি তোমার আরেকটা পরামর্শ দিচ্ছি, সবার কাছে যেহেতু স্মার্টফোন আছে আর এমবি তো নিশ্চয়ই তোমরা নিয়মিত এটাকে নিচ্ছ, সো তোমরা বাসায় বসে তোমরা এই কবিতার টেক্সটটা তোমরা একটু ইয়ে করো, তোমরা ডাউনলোড করে রাখো, এবং তোমরা ইয়েতে ঢোকো, গুগলে ঢোকো, ঢুকে এই কবিতাটা দেখো, এর থিমটা দেখো, ওখানে নোট ফটো আছে, সামারিও আছে, এটা একটু দেখো, মানে নেক্সট ক্লাসের আগে এটা দেখবে কিন্তু। তাহলে কি হবে, তোমার কাছে আরেকটু ক্লিয়ার হবে। ওকে
স্যার অন্য কোন কবিতা নেবেন?
আমরা আরেকটা কবিতা নিব, এরপরে আমরা লক্সলে হল নিব। ঠিক আছে,
জি স্যার।
লক্সলে হল নিব। আগে এই কবিতাটা আমরা ভালো করে একটু আলোচনা করব। আমি জাস্ট আজকে সামারিটা বা মেইন মেসেজটা বললাম। নেক্সট দিন ইন ডিটেইল আমরা লাইনগুলো কিভাবে আসছে, একটা স্ট্যান্ডার অর্থটা আমরা একটু বলবো। প্রত্যেক লাইন পড়া যাবে না সব। হ্যাঁ বলো
স্যার, এখানকার মেইন ক্যারেক্টার কি দুইটাই?
হ্যাঁ, দুটোই। আর অফ সিনে আমরা জিউসকে পাই, সেটা তো ব্যাকগ্রাউন্ডে, কিন্তু এখানে আমরা স্পিকার হচ্ছে টিথনাস আর লিসেনার হচ্ছে অরোরা। অরোরার আরেকটা নাম কি? এই বলো।
আউস।
AOS
Aus.
AOS
Hey Ismail, who is Aus?
House is the god
Hi, Ismail.
of goddess of dawn.
Goddess of
Goddess of the
Goddess.
dawn.
goddess of dawn.
Great. আর ল্যাটিন ভাষায় কি বলা হচ্ছে তাকে?
Aurora.
OS
Aurora. Who is Tithonus? Who is Tithonus?
Tithonus was
আর একজন বলো।
the Lamenden and
Son Leomeden. Who is Leomeden?
the father of Priam.
And King of
Troy.
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 Sir Leomanden কে?
ওই ট্রোজান কিং। তো ঠিক আছে, তোমাদের কি তাহলে হোমওয়ার্ক থাকলো কি? তোমরা আরেকটা তোমাদের বলেছিলাম স্ট্রাইমো, STRYMO, স্ট্রাইমো হচ্ছে ইয়ের মায়ের নাম, টিথনাসের ইয়ের হ্যাঁ টিথনাসের মায়ের নাম স্ট্রাইমো। একজন নিম্ফ বা গডেস বলা হয়, ওয়াটার, পানিতে বিচরণ করে, ফাউন্টেন, স্প্রিং, ওয়াটার। এনি মোর কোয়েশ্চেন?
No sir.
আর টিথনাস এদের মিথের কাহিনীর কিছু অনেক ব্যাখ্যা থাকে, বুঝছো? যেমন এই এদের জন্মের কাহিনী টাহিনী নিয়ে অনেক ভিন্ন মত আছে। আমি যেটা মোস্ট অ্যাকসেপ্টেবল সেটা আমি বললাম। ঠিক আছে?
জি স্যার।
তো কোনো কোয়েশ্চেন না থাকলে আমি তোমাদেরকে গুড বাই জানাতে চাই। স্টে হোম। গ্রেটার পাও নাকি তোমরা?
না
Very
স্যার।
sad.
গ্রেটার পাও নাকি? স্টে হোম।
বেরোই না।
আর বাসে
না ওই রকম বাইরে যাও, কিন্তু আবার বাজারে গিয়ে ঘুরো না।
না স্যার, আড়াই মাস 3 মাস ধরে একদিনও বেরোই নাই।
গুড। তাহলে আমরা রিস্কে আছি, সো আমাদের জন্য দোয়া করো। আমরা তো আশেপাশে করোনায়, বাতাসে করোনা, আশেপাশে করোনা, গড যেন আমাদের সেভ করে। তোমরা দোয়া করো, কেমন?
জি স্যার, অবশ্যই স্যার।
আছে ওকে, সবাই ভালো থাকো। উইশ ইউ বেস্ট অফ লাক। গুড বাই।
স্যার, থ্যাংক ইউ স্যার।
See you in my next class. Okay.
স্যার নেক্সট ক্লাস কবে হবে স্যার? কি বার?
সোমবার 9টায়। তাই ছিল না কথা নাকি? কবে বলছিলাম?
একদিন পর হবে তো? একদিন পর হবে না স্যার? হ্যাঁ, একদিন পর।
ও আজ কি বার?
রবিবার।
রবি, মঙ্গল, বৃহস্পতি।
জি স্যার।
ঠিক আছে, রবি, মঙ্গল, বৃহস্পতি। ওকে, থ্যাংক ইউ অল। গুড বাই।
চলে গেছে?
হ্যাঁ স্যার চলে গেছে স্যার। হ্যাঁ স্যার চলে গেছে।
আমরা কি করবো?
বের হ তুই। বসে আছিস কেন? নাকি আড্ডা দিবি?
আমার
বাসায় যে ফোন করা।
আমি বসে আছি।
রাকিব তুই